Welcome to the Classy Career Girl podcast. I'm your host, Anna Runyon, founder and CEO of Classy Career Girl, one of Forbes' most influential career sites. This is a podcast for a community of women who want to turn their passions into work they love. You'll learn how to become happy, successful, and balanced with class, skill, and style. We believe that you can create your future. So stop delaying your great life. Go put yourself out there. You can have your great life and career right now. All right, welcome to the Classy Career Girl podcast, Jess. I am super excited to have you here with us today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I am excited for this topic because we haven't really talked about influencer marketing too much on this podcast yet. So I would love to first have you share with us kind of how you got started with marketing and social media and entrepreneurship. And I know, you have a partner. You can share with us all about her too and how you found her to grow this business together. I would love to know the story.
Yeah, influencer marketing is a juicy topic, so I'm excited to chat with you about it. My background is in public relations, primarily. So I was working in public relations in Melbourne, Australia. I moved to Toronto about, I guess it's almost just under 8 years ago now, which is crazy to think about. But when I moved, I kind of just expected that I would work in PR again. Like that's what I knew. That's what I was really good at. I'd moved for like a boy, very silly, which did not go well. But anywho, that's a different story for a different podcast. So I had moved with the intention of working in PR and it just did not go well for me. I applied for many jobs, wasn't getting callbacks. I think people were a little turned off by the fact that I was maybe not staying here long term and they just, maybe I was too much of a wild card. So I kind of switched tactics and was like, okay, I don't have to work in PR. I could start a whole new chapter. I could do something different. And I'd always had a really big interest in the wedding industry and wedding planning. So I was like, maybe I'll be a wedding planner here. So I researched every wedding planning company in Toronto and I found two that I really liked. And I reached out to both of them and was just like, could I take you for a coffee? I would love to hear about your business. And one of them I went for coffee with, she became a friend. And then the other said, I have all of the consultants that I need, but it sounds like you're much more suited to PR anyway. I'd love to connect you with a friend of mine. And I kind of I said, of course, thank you, whatever. Didn't expect anything. I was just like, PR is not for me here. It's not happening. But her friend reached out. Her friend was Emily, who's my now business partner. We started working together literally the day that we met. Em had also background in PR, but in more big agency PR, global agency PR. And after she had her two kids, didn't want to go back to that. It's the hours, the workload, it's really intense. So she didn't want to go back to it and had started freelancing and had probably just the tiniest bit too much on her plate to take on herself, but also you don't want to say no to any jobs when you're a freelancer, right? So she was like, could you take on this, and this? And I was like, absolutely, I can. And so we started working together like that. And then, so that was Shine PR, our first iteration of Shine was Shine PR. And then about 4 or 5 months after that, it was kind of coming to the end of the year and we're like, let's set up a bunch of meetings for the new year and kind of just see let's see who we can meet with. We made it a bit of a game for ourselves to see what big meetings we could get. And in doing that, we're like, well, we should kind of present ourselves a little more professionally than just two little freelance friends. So we decided to start Shine PR. And about 6 months after that, we were like, let's look very seriously at the influencer space because no one was doing it in Canada at the time. And we saw the value in social content creators. And with that, we're like, okay, let's do this. Let's kind of just give it a big push, see what we can do. Really expecting in our dreamiest of worlds that this would pay for one person's salary. That was kind of the big goal. And it it like just skyrocketed. So and of course, like it's taken years to get to where we are now. But it was a service offering that was really, really needed in Canada and inevitably throughout the rest of the world as well. So yeah, that's how we started Shine. Those first Shine Influencers, and then we rebranded to Shine Talent Group, just with our talent branching out their service offerings as well. We're like, influencers sometimes can be like a bit of a dirty word. Some people are like, oh, you're an influencer. Like it kind of comes like with an eye roll attached. So we're like, we look at the talent we represent as entrepreneurs, as content creators, as art directors, as copywriters, as photographers, as videographers, all of these wonderful things that kind of go much past the word influencer. So now we are Shine Talent Group.
I love that you mentioned that too, because that's kind of what I wanted you to kind of share. Like what is influencer marketing for those that don't know? And you kind of did right there, right? It goes way beyond just, I'm an influencer, right? Like what sets the people you work with apart from rest of the crowd?
So like in short form, they are people who have curated these incredible online communities, and that transcends to offline now a lot as well. But they have created these communities online. It can be a person, it can be a brand, it can be anything, but this community of people who really trust and believe and are interested in what you have to say. So that's kind of what they do, and what they're like, I believe their like primary skill set is that they've built this incredible level of trust that's very genuine. Like there's no facade there, but they've built this trust, and then brands look at it and say, okay, well, they're the people that we need to talk to, and if we can do that through a voice that they already trust, these people are probably going to be more likely to trust our product or service or brand or whatever it may be.
Yeah. And people have made full-time careers out of it too.
Oh, absolutely. And like very lucrative full-time careers. I often lament, I'm like, I think I'm on the wrong side of this equation. Like, and that's like absolutely not for me at all. But in some ways I'm like, oh, I wish I could have done that. It's so cool. I love what they build.
Yeah. And it's neat too, because like years ago, this wasn't a career field that you could have. And this is the kind of things I feel like they're not teaching in like college and, the potential career options available as well. And so that's why I wanted to have you on too, because it really is a career and it's lucrative. So what are some of the steps that someone could take if they wanted to be an influencer, or what are the steps that the people that you're working with are taking that is allowing them to have such success?
I think knowing that and I mean, maybe this relates to everything, but knowing that it's not an overnight thing. We have some talent, and albeit it is, I will say it is changing, that is shifting, but we have some talent that had like blogs and Instagrams for like 5+ years before getting a paid deal. Like, I think you need to be focused not on just that financial outcome, but about, as I said, like really building that audience and building, like not looking at it as just like one more follower, but like a group of people that you need to nurture, and you need to keep providing value back to them, looking at it that way instead of like, what can I get out of it? And I think in terms of what you want to talk about, I love to look, and we used to talk about this years and years ago when we first started. I always loved the people who would meet with, and they'd say, when I was in high school, I was the one who would like do all of my friends' hair before we like went to a party. And I was the one who like always knew the latest like hair tool or trick or thing, right? So it's those people that like, they already had influence within their own group of 5 friends, right? Like they already kind of were that influential person. And that has now transcended to this online world where there are no borders, no boundaries, and their reach can be infinite. So I always love that. It's like, well, what's important to you? Like, what do you want to talk about? What do people, what sparks people's interest when you start talking about it? And that they're probably the things that people online would be able to connect with as well.
Love that. Yeah. And those are all the things I teach like as a career coach too, of like creating a career you love too. And like, what could you talk about for hours and hours and not get bored? Well, you're going to have to talk a lot about it.
I get about it a lot. So,
So how
yeah.
do you build that audience? I think that's a question I always get as well from our listeners is like, how do I build my audience? And then also, how do you know that you would be a great influencer?
I think knowing that you'd be a great influencer kind of just comes with time. And again, knowing that like the first, blog, TikTok, reel, whatever it is, your first one's not going to be the best one. And that knowing that you'll have to like keep working at it and working at it. But in terms of growth, and this is without fail, the number one question we always get asked. And I like to kind of flip it back because you will never, like, let's say if I look at my own socials, I have like 1,000 followers. It's not something that I'm looking to grow. But if I wanted to grow that, I think it's not about like, how do I just boost those numbers? Because that's not all it's about, but it's about looking like, how can I continue to provide value to those 1,000 people so that, if I'm providing value, if I'm providing really great content, it's shareable content and people want to tell their friends about it. They want to talk about it. Like, oh my gosh, I shared this post because I'm obsessed with this story that you told, or this outfit that you shared, or this makeup tutorial, or again, whatever it is. So I think not focusing purely on the numbers. I think if there's a number you want to focus on building your engagement. So not that, okay, I have 1,000, I'll just keep using that 1,000 followers as my example, but not, I have 1,000 followers, I want to get to 2,000 followers, but I have 1,000 followers and a 10% engagement rate. And I want to get that to 20%. That is the number that I would focus on growing, because what will happen as a byproduct of that is your audience will naturally grow, but it's going to be really slow, and not always slow, but like it's going to be steady. And you're going to be attracting the people who are there for you and your content. And I think it's way more valuable to have 1,000 people who are like tuned in every time you say something and they are there for it. They're excited for you. They're excited for the content, than to have 100,000 people who are like, I'm indifferent. Like those like loyal audience members are what you should be looking at. So if there's a number you want to look to grow your engagement.
That. And because so many people are worried about, I want more followers. It's like, take care of the people you have, right? So I love that you said that.
Yeah, I say that all the time. I'm like, I feel like it's almost like insensitive to the people you already have. Like, look after them. It's that like age-old sales slogan, I suppose. Like, it's cheaper to retain a customer than to get a new one. So I think if you look at your social followers like that, the same principles apply. Like, it's easier to keep someone there if you keep providing value than to be like leaving these people and going to like hunt for someone else.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose the brands that you work with, that's what they want. They're asking for people's engagement rates, probably. That's what you're showing in their media kits and everything.
Have to show it, and it has to be high. Like that's what brands are attracted to, no question. And we've spent years educating them on that as well. That like that's what we are constantly pushing to brands. Like, you want the people who have the loyal audiences. Like, that's what's going to move the needle for you.
Definitely. So when it comes to scaling, and I love that you said that you made your business a game. I think that was like key too, of just like, you're making it fun. You made it a game to try and get these big meetings. So I think that was a big takeaway. I didn't want to skip over it. I know we went fast into the next topic, but when it comes to scaling your business, when it comes to scaling, for us, like Facebook ad prices have increased. So I would imagine influencer marketing is getting a lot more money now from brands and stuff. So tell us about like, how do you scale your influencer marketing business now? And what's the state of the world here?
Yeah, it's the last 2 years, especially like coming through a pandemic, has been a really interesting time and a big growth time for us. Because when everyone, was forced to be indoors and really had no major outlets, where did they go? They went mainly to TikTok, but they went on socials, right? And it was one of the major outlets that we had. And and you got the opportunity to see people who were like, you know, in a similar position to you all around the world. Like, what were they doing? Like, what could you relate? It's very relatable content, right? So with that, and brands still wanting to connect with their audiences, and they're like, where are our audiences? They're sitting at home. Maybe they want to do a makeup tutorial, right? Like maybe they wanted, like, you know, the sale of like sweatsuits like skyrocketed, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I think that, you know, brands of course saw that. We did a lot of education again for brands and agencies who we work with, lots of webinars and things like that, like how to reach your audience through this pandemic. And you know, you couldn't sponsor events anymore in the traditional sense. You couldn't do like out of home billboards, like the print ads, like all of that kind of stuff. Like it fell by the wayside, unfortunately. So the way to reach audiences was through socials, and we saw a huge growth both in our team and in the number of talent that we represented. And we're certainly not the agency to ever be like, we want to represent the most talent. It's not for us at all. Very much a quality over quantity situation for us. So we do represent around 200 talent-ish. With, you know, we have our office in LA, Toronto, and we've just opened an office in London. So we're kind of like scaling up our UK talent now, which is exciting. But I think that, you know, as I said, it was a really interesting time for us, and a time where there were lots of businesses that emerged through COVID too. And they did so primarily through socials, like through like creating their own social content, their own TikTok content, and like connecting with audiences that way. So I look at it certainly as like a COVID silver lining, that there are a lot of really cool businesses that came out the back of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what are the ins and outs of working with an influencer talent agent? Like, how would you go about, you know, starting that relationship?
So if you're a brand or if you're an influencer?
Influencer.
Okay. So if you're an influencer and you're looking to get an agent or a manager, which is like what we would call ourselves. So what happens, we reach out to talent all the time. And we also have talent reach out to us. So I would say if you are reaching out to an agency, one, don't be afraid to ask a lot of questions. Like this is not just like, will we accept you or will we not accept you? Like you have to accept us as well. So I'll talk, you know, to how we operate. But when someone comes to us, you know, we want to see their media kit. We want to see their engagement rate. We want to see any other like key analytics. So if you have the ones that I'm always most attracted to or impressed by, high volume of saves and shares. I'm speaking to Instagram specifically right now. So I think that is the most qualified analytic over anything else, because, you know, we'll call them vanity metrics, like likes and comments that everyone can see and everyone has access to. You know, you can buy them. Not that I feel like that has kind of died away a little though, but it's, you know, people can look. I'm so like happy on Instagram. Like I like everything. And even if I'm not like really looking at it or really like, you know, ingesting that information, I'll still like it. But I feel like I save things when I'm like, oh, I want this, but not right now. And you know, that happens, right? It depends, especially like big ticket items. Like recently I've been saving a lot of content like to do with art. And I'm like, ooh, I think I want this, but I don't know where I want to put it. And I don't know how I want it. So I'll save it for later. Then I'll come back to this artist. So I feel like that it's much more long lead, but it's so highly qualified. So if you have any like real standout things like that, or if you're, I don't know, constantly getting DMs from your audience saying like, can you please do a hair tutorial? Like, how do you get your hair to do that? Like, if you have lots of people like wanting something from you, like include that information, like be quite candid with it. I love seeing things like that. And then what we will do from there is, so we'll take a person that we're interested in, we present it to our whole team, or the Canadian team and the US team do it separately, but it's presented to the whole team on status. Everyone weighs in on it, and everyone, you know, will say, oh, this could be a red flag, or I really like this, or I really like that. And we say, okay, let's move forward with the trial. And then we'll do a trial with that person for anywhere from 1 to 3 months, depending on, it might be longer if we feel like that person needs a bit more of a build. But these are people who already have, I want to say, relatively well-established brands, like personal brands. So we'll do a trial to see what's your communication style like, what is your volume of inquiries that you have coming in? Are they really qualified inquiries? Are they people that are coming just like gifting, or are they like budgets coming through? So we use that time to kind of assess, is this someone who we think is a good fit for us? And also, like, how do they fit on our roster? Like, is there a gap? Are they like filling a gap that we're really interested in? Are they similar perhaps to one of our other creators who have seen a lot of success with, but maybe they're like, we like to have like a high-low option potentially. We have someone in, I don't know, let's say the self-love category who has 1 million followers. It's also great to have a few people who have 100,000 followers if the brands don't have budget for the heavy hitters. So we look and see if there are fits within our roster. Or, you know, maybe we've had a similar experience with someone and we know we'll be really successful. And then from there, we'll move into like an exclusive relationship together. So yeah, we like date them for a little while and then we get married.
I love this topic. Like, do you think, if you were your brands, are they exclusively like Instagram or are they TikTok? I would assume it's Instagram and TikTok these days. Is that kind of what you're seeing?
Yeah. And for the most part, our talent have both. Not everyone, certainly. Like some people are like, oh, I'm an Instagrammer, and they can maybe dabble a little bit with TikTok. But certainly anyone new that we're bringing on, it's pretty important to us that they have both. Brands like to see it. They want that exposure across both platforms. And of course, like a little bit of YouTube as well, but certainly TikTok and Instagram are our primaries.
I love that. This is straight from the source. You're giving us like the trends, the hot information we need to know. Yeah. So are you ready for the Classy Career Girl lightning round questions?
I think so. I'm as ready as I'll ever be.
You'll do great. I love it. So what is your best financial advice?
Invest in your team.
What would be your tips for someone who has a lot of debt right now and is trying to get out?
Chip away at it. If you can consolidate the debt, do that. And I believe that everything is up for negotiation. So if you have a lot of debt with like a credit card company or something like that, call them and say, I want to consolidate this. I want to stay with you guys, but I'm currently at a 15% interest rate. Could we pause that for 3 months so I can like get back on track?
I love that. What do you wish you would have known when you started on this road to career success?
Oh goodness, everything. That investing in our finance team would be the best thing we would ever do.
How do you stay balanced?
I don't know that I do. I feel like I wouldn't say I'm balanced in that I'm like 50-50. I feel like when I'm doing one thing, like when I'm here talking to you, I'm like fully 100% invested in this. When I'm having like off work time, I'm fully invested in that. I find it really easy for myself to switch on and off. And that's certainly a byproduct of having an incredible team. Like there is no question, like that is the one thing that allows me to do that. But I had just taken a month off to get married, and
congrats.
Thank you. The day I was off, I was like, I'm off. Like I'm out. Like so I'm not like worrying and thinking about work, but I'm also like, I'm not a big worrier. So yeah, balance is not something that I've struggled with too much.
How cool that you've created a career you love where you got to take a month off to get married. Like that's awesome.
My business partner and I did that for the first time this year. She had taken a month off earlier in the summer because another like business friend of ours had said, last year we were chatting with them and they said, you know, I'm off for August. And we were like, excuse me? What do you mean you're off? And they work for themselves, like just them. And we're like, hold on. We have a team of 60 people. there's two of us already, like Emily and myself. We can do that. Of course we can do that. We have this like crazy, amazing team. We can take a month off. So we did it this year and it was wonderful. My time was very busy because I spent it getting married and having my family in town and things like that. So I'm already excited for it next year. I'm like, oh, I should have a break and like read a book and what a joy.
That's awesome. Goals for sure.
I know.
So how do you find happiness and fulfillment in your work?
I always had two things that were very important to me. And I really focused on what those things were, especially before I started Shine. And those two things were fun and flexibility. And I really like encourage people to look at like what is important to you. Like it might be finances, it might be work-life balance, it might be boundaries. There's so many things that they could be, but like my two words for that are fun and flexibility. So I am a huge believer that like I want work to be fun, and that's not to say that there won't be like challenging days, of course, but it has to be fun for me. Otherwise, it's just not for me. And flexibility is really important. I want to be able to go home to Melbourne. I want to be able to like work from wherever I am, like and of course that's like much more common now with the work from home life. But even before the pandemic, I was like, I have to be able to do this. Like I cannot have a job where I have 2 weeks of vacation and I can't do it. It's 24 hours of flying to get back to Australia from Toronto. So it's, that those things were really important to me. So everything that I've done now always comes back to that. And I'm like, is it fun? And it give me the flexibility that I want. And what is fun to me and what is flexible to me has changed, of course, like over the years, and that shifts. But they were the two things that were important to me and I like stuck to always.
I love that you had a vision and you like know what you wanted to, and it helps you make decisions too.
Yeah,
when
absolutely. It'll like come back to that. And then I think for me, everything always feels like very consistent because I'm like, is it consistent with what I want in my life and in my work life?
So now what brings you most joy in your career?
Our team's growth, not just by numbers, but like seeing their growth. I was just on our like monthly status call with our Canadian team yesterday, and because Emily and I don't spend as much time with the team like day to day anymore, especially more of our junior team members. So when we get on that monthly like big recap call with them every month, I'm like, they're so much smarter. Like what they do. I love seeing that. I like often will message them afterwards and like, not that I didn't think you were smart before. I definitely did, but you like leapt up, like something happened and you sounded so strategic, so strong, so confident. I love seeing that. That like makes me beam.
Hey, that means you're a good leader too. Like, cause you've put the systems and structures in place for them to advance and grow as well. I love that.
Yeah.
What does having class mean to you in your personal life or at work?
I think having a healthy level of confidence. So not tipping into like the ego category, but having some really nice confidence, being confident in like the decisions you make, being confident in, your mind and your strategy and all of those things. And always kindness.
How do you describe your work style?
Casual. That's a good question. How do I describe my work style? I want to say it's very casual and like friend to friend in nature. I hope that it's very supportive, very encouraging. And I think above all, I'm a very excitable person. So I think there's a lot of enthusiasm.
Good. Last question. You're almost done. What's the most important skill to have in business?
Being able to ask for what you want, for sure. Like you just have to. I think you can't be shy about that. You have to be able to communicate what you want, whether it's good or bad. And I'm like the most like glass half full, rose-colored glasses, silver linings person. So I think that you can always find a positive in any situation. I really believe that. It's in a work sense for sure. So I think being able to communicate that, being able to talk about that, being able to ask for what you want, if you just have to, and more often than not, I feel like people will come to the table. Like they appreciate the confidence, they appreciate you asking, and they appreciate just knowing what you want, right? Like we've had that so many times with team members where they might ask for something like, oh, well, they'll ask something after the fact when someone else did it. And I was like, I had no idea you were interested in doing this or that. So I think that's really cool. Like one of our, as I mentioned, we're opening an office in London, and one of our Toronto-based team members had come to us and she was like, I want to move to London. I've been wanting to do it, but I didn't want to leave Shine. So I've stayed in Canada, but now this has come up. Like I want to move, and we're like, done. Like,
wow,
you're our London employee. Congratulations. Okay. But like, if she hadn't done that, she may have just sat there and been like, I wish I was going to London, and we would have no clue. So I think, being able to ask for what you want in work and in life is just like the biggest asset you can have.
Oh, good. I love that example. Good for her.
Yeah, I know.
Sure. Awesome. So where can people find out more about you, about your company, what you're up to online?
Yeah. So for Shine everything's the same for Shine. So Shine Talent Group, website, shinetalentgroup.com. And you can probably find me through one of those avenues, but if not, my Instagram is at Jess Hunichen, or one word. I'm the only one. It's an easy one.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all this information with us today. This was so fun. And I know everyone's going to be building their audiences on Instagram and TikTok now. Excellent. And upping that engagement rate, right? We're going to follow your advice.
I'm excited to see it, but thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.
Thank you. Hey there, thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Classy Career Girl podcast. If you want to dive in deeper with me, get more free training and advice to help you find a job or business you love that supports the life that you really want, I'd love to invite you to check out more of my free blog posts, more free videos, and to give you the opportunity to download my free 90-day planning workbook. The best place to get started is to go to www.classycareergirl.com/free stuff. And that will guide you to the best place to start. So I look forward to helping you and supporting you further in reaching your goals and dreams. I will see you soon.